Let's talk about nothing. Seriously, it seems so simple, right? It's just an absence, a void, a lack of stuff. But what if I told you that one of the biggest ideas in all of philosophy is hiding inside that simple little concept?
So, just for a second, think about it. If I asked you to actually picture nothing, what image pops into your head? Is it maybe a vast, dark, empty space, a totally blank page? Or is it something a little more precise?
Yeah, I'm willing to bet that for a lot of us, this is the image that comes to mind. The number 0. It's clean, it's mathematical, it's the symbol we've all been taught to use when we want to represent the absence of something. It just feels right, obvious even. But what if that connection, that simple line we draw between the idea of absolute nothingness and the number 0, what if that's not just a tiny error, but a huge, fundamental mistake, a mix-up that actually flattens out one of the most powerful concepts in human thought? Okay, let's get into this. To really understand what's going on, we need to introduce our two main players. Now, what's fascinating is that they both come from the same linguistic root in Sanskrit, but they represent two wildly different ways of thinking about nothing. First up, we've got 0, or Shunya. This is the one we all know and love, right? It lives in the world of mathematics. It's a symbol, a quantity, a placeholder. Its whole job is practical, it's operational, it helps us count an absence. You know, there are 0 apples in the bowl. It's a tool, plain and simple.
And then we have Shunyata. And this is a whole different beast entirely. This isn't some tool for math class. This is an ontological condition. That means it's about the very nature of being. It points to the absolute, total, uncompromised absence of everything. And here's the crucial part. Shunyata isn't a thing that is empty. It's the condition of absence itself.
And this quote, wow, this quote just perfectly captures the mind-bending scale of Shunyata. It marks the absolute limit of what we can even talk about. It's that conceptual space where our words, our labels, our entire ability to name and categorize things just fails. It completely loses its grip. This is the edge of the map, folks. So putting them side by side like this makes the difference crystal clear. You've got 0, Shunya, over in the domain of mathematics. But Shunyata, it lives in the world of metaphysics. Their very nature is different. One is a quantity. You can use it in an equation. The other is a condition of being, or maybe non-being. And so their functions are totally different. 0 helps us count stuff. Shunyata's job is to mark the boundary of what we can even think about.
Okay, so what's the big deal if we mix them up? Well, that's where we get to the core argument of our source material. When we do that, we commit a really fundamental error in how we think.
The source calls this a mistake of category. It's a fancy-sounding phrase, but it just means we're putting something in the wrong conceptual box. We're taking this vast, almost unthinkable idea from metaphysics, this absolute absence, and we're trying to squash it down into a simple little symbol from math. We're using the wrong tool for the job, big time. Here's a great way to think about it. 0 is like an empty box. It's a container. It has nothing in it, sure, but we can still point to it and count it. Shunyata, on the other hand, is the very idea of emptiness itself. You can't hold that concept. You can't put it in an equation. One is a specific instance. The other is the abstract principle that makes that instance possible. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, that's a cool philosophical point, but so what? Does this actually matter? And the answer is a resounding yes. Getting this distinction right has huge consequences for how we think about some of the biggest questions out there. So first, there's a theological consequence. By understanding that Shunyata isn't a thing, we avoid this common trap of accidentally turning nothingness into some kind of phantom god or a mysterious substance that everything came from. Second, an epistemic one. That's about knowledge. It teaches us intellectual humility. It forces us to admit, hey, there are limits to what we can truly know and claim. And finally, it has a methodological impact. It helps us read ancient texts about creation or silence, not as being nihilistic, but as being incredibly precise about defining the limits of what can even be said.
And all of this brings us to the final and maybe the most important insight from this whole exploration. It's all about reframing what this big idea of nothing is actually for.
Because, it's so tempting to hear a phrase like absolute absence and think it's a negative or defeatist idea. Like it's just some form of nihilism that denies reality. But that's not its purpose at all. It's not about that. Here it is. The real point is that Shunyata is a conceptual posture. I love that phrase. Think of it like a guardrail for our thinking. Its job is to protect the integrity of our thought by drawing a really sharp line in the sand. It preserves this profound distinction between the entire world we can describe and count and name and the radical, silent absence that lies just beyond it. And that leaves us with a final question to chew on. Shunyata marks a boundary for our thought and language. So what other ideas do you know that push you to that same edge? Concepts like infinity, or consciousness, or maybe even time itself. Ideas that seem to slip right through your fingers the moment you try to pin them down with words. That boundary, that's where some of the most interesting thinking really happens. Thanks for digging into this with me.